Yeah. Okay. So let me see, Mike. Check. We good.
And lives, like, you're not perfect on live, so it's okay. We're looking up, hey.
Do you know if people are?
So you'll start to see them coming in.
Inside.
So they're getting notified, and then you'll start to see one person say, "Hello, who is it?"
Hey, come in.
Person.
I'm just gonna.
I think this camera adds a couple pounds.
You know what? I feel the same. I could just blame it on the baby.
Yeah. Maybe it's my wife's cooking.
All right, so I'm just gonna invite the people from over on Instagram.
So we have Shalom. Shalom from where?
Shalom, Tania. Thanks for coming in. All right, so we're still waiting. We'll give it a couple minutes just so we can get people in.
Yeah, 4 people are in so far.
You should send it to the IT group. I feel like they're gonna want to see it.
I sent them a message earlier, so yes.
You did? Okay,
yes.
but that was at 9 p.m. You said that.
I did. Boom, here we go. Share. Just waiting for people to come on in. Grab some popcorn.
Thank you, guys. This is going to be an awesome, awesome night. We are super excited. Shalom. New Jersey. Okay.
It's good.
New Jersey's
My
in the
hometown.
house.
Yeah.
Oh, that's your hometown.
Yeah, I grew up in New Jersey.
Like born and raised?
I was born in Queens. I grew up in New Jersey.
Oh, okay.
Marlboro, New Jersey.
Hey guys, could you give us a just a number 1 in the chat if you could hear it really well? Just making sure our levels are good.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Shlomo.
This is going to be a powerful live chat.
It's going to be powerful.
Invite your friends. This is going to be really, really awesome. I'm excited.
Put the link here. The URL. Live now.
Oh, Zach, what's going on?
Wow.
So
He's from the Tzion?
Yeah.
wow, hello, nice. Aisha from Africa.
Hey.
Yes, wow.
Nice.
We have Africa in the room.
Yes, we're all on the West Coast.
Yeah. Yep.
Oh, you know what? Let me make sure we are on the arrow.
Cool. Wow, what time is it in Africa right now?
Yeah, what time is it in Africa? It's 8:08 here in California.
That's funny. We just asked you the same question. Yes.
All right. Let's see. Just posting it on Instagram right now. So if you guys have, can you hear me? Let me see if we're back on. Just making sure we're good. Just give me one if we're good. If you guys can hear us, just to make sure. Okay. Thank you, Zach. Sounds like there's not a lot of delay. That's really good. So if you guys are on, if you guys have Facebooks and you guys have Instagrams and WhatsApps, definitely feel free to share this link. This is going to be a life-changing live. As you guys can see, we have Rabbi Kalmus right here in our home, right? So this is craziness. So usually we shoot our videos over in our garage, right, with the little wooden looking background, but we wanted to kind of change it up a little bit. And he's Breslov all day, Rebbe Nachman. So we got him sitting right in front of Rebbe Nachman's corner right here. So we wanted to make sure that this is it was set up very, very nice. But you guys definitely do not want to miss it. If you can't attend, because we have people here live right now. If you unable to attend, we're definitely going to have it on replay. So once we get done, feel free to watch it anytime. But we're going to do a Q&A, right? You okay with a Q&A?
Absolutely.
Listen,
That's the
Let's
best.
mix it up.
listen.
Take advantage of that. That's why I said invite your friends on this chat right now.
It's going to be good. It's going to
good.
get really, really good.
Wow. And Aisha, thank you for tuning in from Africa at 7:08 a.m. And you're heading to work as well. So
Incredible.
we appreciate that.
Incredible. Okay. So Rabbi, I made a lot of questions.
Oh, wow. Okay.
A lot of questions. Okay, so before we jump into it, I think we can go ahead and just get started, and as people just start rolling in, it's all good. Okay. And at any time during the live, definitely feel free to just throw a little message in the chat. Let us know that maybe the sound went out or something like that. But I think we should be good to go. Okay. So without further ado, thank you guys so much for tuning in tonight. The House of Lave. This is something that we were kind of thinking about, since we like to talk about elevating and taking your life to the next level. And we like to bring on people to our channel to interview them and ask them questions. Every single interview that we've done, it's been an elevation for us. Mm-hmm. Right. And so we thought about maybe kind of calling these series like Elevate Your Life. Mm-hmm. Or something like that. Right. So it's Elevate Your Life. And we're here, my wife and I, Danielle Hart. You want to say anything? I don't want to say everything.
Oh, he just introduced you and said Danielle Hart and ended it on there and put me on the spot. No, I mean, he said everything, okay. But we're so excited to have you here, Rabbi. We really are. It's truly an honor. And it's unreal to us. Like, he's in our home. So it's just awesome just to be able to have this time. And that's why we have so many questions, and we're definitely going to take advantage of that time.
Okay, go for it. Listen, I had a long trip to get to America, a long trip to get to California. So just let her rip. Let's do it.
Amen. So, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, we are here live in California, Southern California, with Rabbi David Kalmus. And so if you can't, just give a round of applause. Right?
There's clap emojis. Right?
There's clapping emojis. But Rav Kalmus, he's been a huge inspiration in our lives. When we first started our journey to Judaism, right at the very, very beginning, we found Rebbe Nachman's teachings. And at the same time, a good friend of ours, Lior, he said he's going to be on, so he should be coming in really, really, really soon. But he was the one. He sent me a message. He said, "Listen, you got to listen to Rabbi Kalmus' shir when you're in New York doing the shirs." And he said, "Let me see if I can get you in the WhatsApp, get you in the classes." And ever since then, your teachings have definitely radically changed our minds, the way we think about things. He has a way of being able to take Rebbe Nachman's concepts and ideas and making it very, very simple, but also just easy to digest, mm-hmm. but also still deep, though, because when you hear this man talk, you're going to be like, wow, that's incredible. I've never been able to look at it like that. So Rav Kalmus, welcome.
Thank you. It's my pleasure to be here. It's a big merit to be here. This journey has been a long one for me, and it's been an unexpected one. And to connect with other people who have different but also unexpected and beautiful journeys. Yeah. This is what it's all about, and us connecting and trying to share that light with others. This is very special. I'm very blessed, and I'm really excited about this.
Wow. Well, the merit is ours. Me and my wife, we've been talking this whole time, ever since he let us know that he was coming, right? He sent me a text. He's like, hey, I'm coming to California, basically. And so we worked out the details, and, we've been trying to figure out, like, wow, how did this happen?
Yeah.
How did we get, chosen to be able to have to teach so we can learn. And so it
truly is. Because I just remember my husband, like, babe, you have to watch these videos from Rabbi Kalmus, like, you have to watch these. And I remember just watching your video on YouTube and him just sharing, you know, the teachings of Rebbe Nachman, and a lot of it just making so much sense, and we connected instantly. And I would say that your videos is what helped us really connect to his teachings. And we'll be sitting on the couch just watching and learning together. Like, wow, did you hear that? Wait, replay that. Or we'll be driving in our car and we're listening to, you know, your messages that you're sharing. And it's just unreal that it's like you're here, right, in our home. So we're just, like you said, the mirror it's ours for sure.
Well, I just, you know, I don't want to veer us off too much, but you know, I do this practice called hitbodedut. I did it before on the outside of your house. Thank God, no police were called. And, I could tell you a good story about that later. But it's a time to really reflect on your life. It's Rosh Chodesh Adar. This is a new month. This is a new day. This is a new experience. This is the first mitzvah we ever got as the Jewish people. And Rabbi Nachman points out the fact that there's only a few mitzvot that were given to us while we were still slaves in Mitzrayim. And Rabbi Nachman's main student, explains that the key to leaving Mitzrayim, and Mitzrayim is a code word for any type of slavery. It could be psychological slavery, it could be institutionalism within your society. That's all type of meitzar, constriction, slavery. So you need Rosh Chodesh to get out. You need to start over. You know, so much of our life we're holding on to trauma and to negative experiences, to hardships, and we feel like it's a big mitzvah to hold on to it and to, you know, get a nice Ben & Jerry's ice cream and soak in it and sit in it with some 80s romance movies and cry yourself away. I spent a lot of years doing that, but then you're going to stay in Mitzrayim. Here comes Rebbe Nachman to tell you it's okay. You could just start over. And so for me, you know, not so long ago, I myself was institutionalized, you know, in a psych ward. I checked myself in because I was struggling so much. And I really, really prayed to Hashem that if you're real and you really do care about me and you love me like Rebbe Nachman says you do, and you run the world and you run every aspect of my life, and you're gonna have to help me. So I made a promise to Hashem that if he did, then I would spend the rest of my life trying to help others do the same. And he did, and now we're here. And so, you know, I'm not trying to, it's not a fight about whose merit it is. But I just want to tell you, it really is mutual. And this is just a fulfillment of, you know, so many dreams coming together, and it's really, it's surreal.
Amen. Beautiful. So if just so we could make sure that everybody is on the same page, if you don't mind, you know, can you tell everyone a little bit about yourself? You know, how did you get here? You're a rabbi. You mentioned you check yourself into a psych ward, and so we got a lot of questions here, right? Sure. So if you can just give them a little introduction. Who is Rabbi Kalmus?
Okay. So I was born in Queens. I grew up in New Jersey, in Marlborough, New Jersey.
So shout out to anybody from Queens.
Yeah. And I grew up in a Reform household. So my parents went to shul every Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, and we lit Hanukkah candles. And we had like a ceremonial Passover dinner, but that was pretty much the extent of it. I had a Sunday education to get your bar mitzvah. It's pretty common for secular Jews. You go once a week, and then when you get bar mitzvah, you stop going. So that's what I did. But because I was always like a truth seeker, and I wasn't really satisfied with whatever was going on, at least superficially, so I had a lot of questions about life. And because part of thinking deeply is if you're not receiving a lot of light with those questions that you're asking, it's like a recipe for depression. And so for me, I suffered from depression from a very young age, you know, going back to probably 10 years old. I was bullied as a kid growing up. People who I thought were my best friends, you know, didn't treat me in the way that I treated them. And I had a hard time reconciling why people who seemingly I thought cared about me would speak about me like that, would do things to me like that. And I really couldn't understand because I wouldn't do that to somebody else. So I had like no reference point. And so what ultimately happened is I started to become depressed. Part of depression comes from hopelessness, right? And a lot of hopelessness comes from not understanding the world and feeling like you're at the whims of whatever is going on and you have no ground to stand on, right? So when I got to middle school, I found a book on evolutionary theory. And this book changed my life because it gave me answers to questions I had had for all of these years, which is, why are people so cruel? Oh, because we're just evolved monkeys, you know? Right? And so for me, even though it might sound like, well, that's very depressing, you know, that's the great revelation you had. But it actually answered a lot of questions, you know, all of the power struggles and all of the like moves that were being made and all of the interactions and things that I had, like, oh, animals do this also. But on the other hand, it increased my level of meaninglessness in my life. Because even though I really it resonated deeply that this was likely true, on the other hand, it stopped me from believing in God, right? And as the years went on, and this happens a lot, I think, with people, is that you start to intellectualize your emotions. So I'm feeling really bad about myself and I'm feeling really bad about the world, and I'm expressing it as intellectual doubts. And so I used to, you know, challenge people who believed in God. I used to, by the time I got to college, I was going up to anybody that I saw said they believed in God, anything, and I would sit there with them for hours to try to disprove them that God exists. You know, and like looking back on it, like, why do you care so much? You know, either he does or he doesn't. You know, if someone said there was like an alien on the planet Zinich, you know, I'm just making up my name. I don't know why it sounded Jewish when I said it. Hebrew planet. And then so it says, I believe in that planet and I believe in those people on that planet. Like, I never sat with somebody for hours to disprove that to them. I don't do that every day. Why? Because it's not relevant to my life. So why am I sitting every day trying to disprove God? Like, in retrospect, it's because I think I was looking for someone to disprove me. Right? Because I really, you know, even when I was a little kid, I don't remember this, but my parents told me after I started to grow spiritually and do tshuva, which is like you start to want to be close to Hashem. That's the Hebrew word for God. My parents told me that I was in Orthodox preschool because they were the only school that took you all day. So when I was there, apparently I wanted to be a singing, dancing rabbi. And they told me that I made them keep kosher in the house and keep Shabbat. I don't remember any of these things. But obviously, like, ever since I was very little, I was like searching, you know, I was always searching. And then I was going to a lot of concerts and, you know, like a lot of secular people, but especially people who have a big vessel, a big kli, but don't have any light. That is like a recipe for disaster because you turn to drugs, you turn to dangerous sexual behaviors, you turn to a lot of things that can really derail your life. And I was engaged in all of it. And I had a lot of near life experiences that could have turned out much worse. There was like a point in my life where they sent me out on a helicopter to a hospital in Virginia because they thought I was having a heart attack from certain drugs that I had been taking at the time. And I just kept filling up more and more, trying to fill up this empty cup of mine and not able to. And then one time I was at a concert and I took a certain substance and I had an experience. I think what the Torah would call like a chazon, a vision, right? Which, you know, in the psychological world, they would say it would be due to the drugs, right? But my friend was also on those same drugs and he didn't have any type of experience, not like the one I had. And I came out feeling like I have to go visit Israel.
After the experience?
From the experience. So at that concert that night, I told my best friend, we have to go visit Israel. And he told me, why? You know, he knows me as like this flaming atheist, you know, who's like always, you know, why do you want to go to Israel? The only thing we know is like birthright. There's a free trip to Israel.
Yeah.
Even secular Jews go on. Who doesn't want a free trip to a beautiful country, beautiful weather? So signed us up for the trip. We didn't get on. We weren't religious enough for the secular trip. And then I said to him, you know, we got to go though. And he goes, okay. So he signed us back up. We finally got on. I saw somebody on the trip rapping to Philin, which I never saw in my life.
Yeah.
I didn't know what he was doing to himself. I was like to my friend, what type of religious trip did you get us on? Like, you know, what is this?
Yeah.
Whatever. I got off the plane. I felt like I was home for the first time, even though I'd never been there.
Wow.
And I didn't know how to put that into myself because I was an atheist. Right? I didn't know what to do with that. And then towards the end of that trip, that kid was rapping to Phil and asked me if I wanted to stay and travel across Israel. So for me, I love traveling. I love doing new things. I was starting graduate school at UCLA for social work after the trip, not long after. And I spoke to my dad. My dad said to me, listen, you're not going to have time. You're not going to have money to do things like this anymore. See how much it costs. If it doesn't cost too much money, stay, take advantage. You know, in retrospect, I don't know if he would have gave me that advice because everything happened as a result. But it was $50 to extend for 1 month, which doesn't make any sense.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's 50?
Yeah, $50. And so I was like, okay, you know, like I didn't know about Hashgacha Pratit. I didn't know about divine providence. I didn't know that, like Hashem's doing things to try and bring you closer to Him. I just like, okay, $50, I could shelf that. So I did it. And a week before we left, I was in a city called Eilat, the southernmost part. I told you it was really hot and dry. And I saw a group of girls over there, and I went over to them. There was like this this ball that shoots up really, really high and comes down. I forget what they call it. Some type of like amusement park ride. And I went over and I started speaking to them. And I didn't know it was like unusual that they spoke perfect English because they're Israeli, they're Yemenite. And I had a great conversation with them. And my friends told me, they're like, David, like these girls are not like the girls at Penn State. Like they're religious.
Yeah.
I was like, well, what do you mean? He's like, you see their shirts, you see they're down to here, you see their skirt, you see it's below their knees. So like, I was like, yeah. He's like, you know, so they're not. This is not like you're used to. So I didn't know anything. I was very naive. Whatever. I loved speaking to them. They were so nice and friendly, and you know, whatever. And ended up being that, like, I asked her, it was like, you guys want to hang out tomorrow night? Because it was Thursday night.
You asked the girls?
Yeah. So it was like Friday night, it's party night, you know? Like, so
you asked them on Friday.
I was like, you know, I was like, you guys want to hang out tomorrow night? It's Friday night. So they're like, tomorrow night's Shabbat. And they said, what's that? And they started to explain to me what it was.
So you had no idea what Shabbat was?
No.
Wow.
And I thought it was a party.
You thought Shabbat was a party?
Based on what they said.
Whoa,
maybe I was just looking for it.
Awesome.
But they started to explain it to me, and I said, oh, that's great. Like, can I come? They're like, it's not a party. It's like family. It's Judaism. It's this. It's that. So I was like, okay, fine. I was like, well, you guys have Facebook. Maybe we could connect after. And they're like,
I love it.
They said, no, I don't know. Do they still have Facebook? This is Facebook Live, right? So they still. So they said, no, we don't have Facebook. So like every question, I was like striking out. Yeah. But they kept speaking to me, so it was very unusual. Usually girls like are not interested, and
they'll cut you off,
right? Or they're interested and they say, okay, let's move it forward. They're like smiling and looking at me and saying no to everything I say, but they don't leave the conversation. So I didn't know what's going on. But I had this weird feeling inside of me, which I never really had, which is like, this is not mine. I still remember it. Like she's not mine. And I said, it was nice to meet you and have a good night. And I'm thinking about her for like the next hour, 2 hours. We're staying out at night. We're still looking around for things to do. Now it's like 2 a.m. and we go to a random pizza place there. I walk in and a few minutes after, she walks in again with her sisters. Apparently her friend was obsessed with sushi, wouldn't let the girls go to sleep until they found kosher sushi. And this happened to be the only place that had it. Again, I didn't know about divine providence. I didn't know about Shidduchim, I didn't know about Zivugim, I didn't know about Pesheret, you know, like all these different things. I'm just like, what are the chances? That's
Yeah,
crazy.
of
I could speak to this girl
Yeah.
again, you know, and we're talking again. We end up connecting. Ultimately, me and my friends hung out with her and her sisters a few times before I left. And I fell for her, like hard. And I'm a big dreamer, you know, like that's why I'm here.
Yeah. Sure.
I've always been like that. I never really felt like something's not possible. And again, that doesn't really make sense if there is nothing supernatural going on, because really you should feel like nothing's really possible except for what's in front of you.
Yeah.
Right. So I kept speaking to her. I didn't tell her how I felt. I had a long history of telling girls how I felt about them, getting hurt by them. So at this point, by the time I got to college, I was just like, I'm not telling anybody how I feel. I'm just going to work out like crazy and like just prove to myself that I can get girls to like me and like this whole thing. And so I was just like a closed book at that point. And one day we were Skyping. I don't know if they still have this.
I don't know if you were Skyping.
If you're like a 60-year-old.
I remember Skype though.
Do you remember those days? You know.
Isn't it just Zoom?
I think it's Zoom or you just use your FaceTime.
Right. So we were Skyping.
Yeah.
And she was telling me about dates that she was being set up on, and she didn't know how I felt about it. I never told her. We just kept talking every day. So I'm like, oh, that's great, that's amazing, and I'm like crying on the inside, like thinking about it. She's going on dates with these guys, and then I, as we're signing off Skype, I accidentally told her, I love you.
Oh.
It was really like I really didn't do it. It wasn't on purpose. I wasn't trying to do something. I was like, okay, have a good night. I love you. And I told her the thing, and I broke up in a sweat. I went in the shower. I spent the next half an hour convincing myself she didn't hear me. And even if she did, it was so crazy. What were the chances that she would probably just be like, nah, that was a mistake. She didn't really. By the time I got out, I'm like, okay, everything's good. I look at my phone. She's like, you just tell me you love me. So I'm thinking to myself, like, okay, here's a Yemenite, Israeli, religious Jew, and I am a secular atheist from America.
Wow.
Like, the chance of this turning into anything, I don't even know how
I
she
said I
feels.
can't hear anything. Sorry. Can you guys hear? Put a 1 in the chat.
Oh,
he top said I can hear.
Yeah. Maybe it's on their end. People
Okay.
can hear.
Cool,
Okay.
cool. Borscht, maybe try to maybe try to close out your YouTube and then come back in.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Thank you guys so much. Oh, everybody's responding. Okay, great. So there's 47 people in here. Beautiful. Thank you so much for tuning in. Awesome.
So ultimately, I'm just like, either she is different, and I'm just gonna tell her how I feel, and if I get hurt, let me get her in the beginning of grad school, and I'll soak my wounds and move over this. Or maybe she's different, like I think she might be, and I don't know where it's gonna go, but I'm just gonna tell her. So I'm like, I told you it, and I meant it. So she said back to me, David, you know, I'm not like one of these girls you go to college with and you just say things in order to do things. Like, I'm from Israel. When you say you love somebody here, it means something. And I was like, no, I really did mean it. She didn't respond to me for a whole day. I got so hurt. I'm like sitting sulking in my bed. I turned my phone off. I threw it against the wall. And I looked at my phone after about a day, and I turned my phone back on. I was like, I have to go on with my life. And she said, I love you too. And that was the beginning of my journey to Hashem.
Whoa.
Because now I'm confronted by a woman who believes more than I believe in anything. And it's not based on any logical, scientific, you know. Their faith is very, very...
It says audio. Somebody else said audio is a bit buzzy. What does Borscht said? What happened to your connection? But that's the only... I don't think...
Borscht said...
I see carry on with a lot of exclamation points.
Okay, somebody else said audio is a bit staticky.
Oh, let me see.
Is it still staticky?
Is it better if we talk louder? Does that help, or it doesn't make a difference?
Is the mic? You didn't want the mic hooked up, is it?
I was using this one, but maybe we use it's static. It's a bit buzzy. Okay. Okay. Let me, because I want to make sure you guys hear. That's the most important thing.
Hello, Cheyenne. Hello, Robin.
Let me get the other mic hooked up. 1 second. Okay.
Yeah, that one.
I'm gonna go. Give me a second. It's static. Okay.
We don't want static. Static is no fun. So I'm guessing this is your wife.
Yeah. Everyone says that. They're like, I hope this is your wife.
I'm sitting. I'm like,
be weird.
oh, look, like the whole time you're saying, I'm like, I know this is his wife. I know.
Yeah. So we ended up getting married.
Somebody said, what did they say? How does Rob Kalmus hold? Oh, Rabbi Kellman hold with.
Oh, techelet. There's a color on tzitzit. And it's the controversy about whether you should wear it or not before Mashiach comes. He's going right for the jugular.
Somebody just asked you that question?
Yeah. We're working on the audio.
Yeah.
Give us a
Give
second.
us a second.
We
Sorry
don't
about
want
that.
static. Stay tuned. It's getting so good.
Let's see. Let me see. Can you guys hear me? Let me see. Can you guys hear me? No more static, I think. No sound. Okay.
She definitely completed her
Yeah.
mission. She's still working on it. Don't worry, I'm a lifelong project. I told you this stuff happens.
Very low.
Crazy.
Okay. Still no sound? No, they said okay, much better. I can hear.
I still there's.
Is it clear though at least? Oh, it said we can hear.
Better?
But just put it towards is that better? Oh, I can hear.
Not the best, but better. If someone can speak.
How's it going, guys? Can you hear us?
Yeah.
Is there any static anymore? Check, 1, 2.
A little low.
How is it now? Does it sound better?
Very low.
I mean, this never happens to us when we do.
There's a lot of people who are saying it's not.
Oh my gosh.
Sound great, sound perfect. You can speak to the speaker. The volume is good. No more static. Okay.
No more static.
We're gonna try this now. Let's see. Okay. Saying it's good.
It's good? Okay.
Okay.
Because, it was right at
Okay.
that part where I'm like.
All right.
Okay, so essentially, like, now it's amazing. This is like the best moment of my life. Somebody actually likes me the way that I like her. But on the other hand, like, now what? Where does this meet? So it ended up being that she realized pretty soon after that I wasn't just secular, but I was actually like a hardcore atheist. And yeah, so she is very unique, and she's probably was just religious, and she was religious enough that she had a huge impact on me, but she was not so religious, we'll say, to the extent that she wouldn't not talk to me as a result. Mm-hmm. So, I can see, like, in retrospect how Hashem does things, because now we both elevated since that point, but it's like she brought me up and I tried to help bring her up, and we're doing that together now. But that's how Hashem does things. Yeah. But she told me, she's like, David, like, just because I don't have answers to your very deep philosophical questions doesn't mean there's nobody does. There's plenty of rabbis that have answers to these questions. So I was like, really? She's like, yeah. So when I was at UCLA, I just started to meet Orthodox rabbis for the first time and speak to them. I asked them all these different questions that I had. And after about a year of being with them, I mean, I didn't necessarily resonate immediately with the fact that it was true, but I did resonate with certain the Shabbat to me was like a wonder, this time in which that you're able to connect deeply, and they're speaking about meaningful things. And for the first time in my life, I heard adults talking to each other, and there was no superficiality. There was nothing plastic going on. It wasn't about how much money you had or what you looked like. People were really trying to learn about themselves and learn about some deeper truth and to connect and to explore. And I so craved that,
Yeah.
So I just kept going. And after about a year, one of them gave me a book. One of the rabbis gave me a book. Moshe Nachbar, shout out, I love you. He gave me a book called The Secret Life of God. This was a book written by a rabbi. He has a yeshiva called Israelite. It's right next to the Kotel. He's a Baal Tshuva himself. He has a very special way of communicating, very simply, very deep ideas. And essentially, it was a book based on Kabbalah and Hasidus to explain all of these questions that I've always struggled with in my life.
Yeah.
I read this book, and the night that I read this book, I had an epiphany like I did when I was in middle school, the opposite way with atheism, evolution. And this night I realized in a very deep way that not only was I wrong my whole life and that God exists, but that the whole reason I felt like an alien my whole life is not because there's anything wrong with me, it's because I'm Jewish. And, when you grow up in the non-Jewish world and you grow up in secular society, all of these things don't necessarily have a place. My love and my passion for social justice, right? That's a Jewish thing. A lot of people don't know that. Like wanting to do things to help widows and orphans. Now it's become a big thing. Right? You'll see this in different communities, but that's a Torah concept. There was no such thing before the Torah of wanting to help widows and orphans. In fact, in most societies, they didn't want to invite people who were poor or impoverished or were oppressed into their community because it hurts the standards and the standings of the community.
Sure.
Right? So all of these things, I grew up and I was always volunteering. I was volunteering at a suicide hotline when I was in Penn State, and I would sleep over and I would try to help people who were suicidal. When I was growing up, I worked at an autism camp trying to help kids who are autistic. Like all of these things that I had this deep, why do you have that deep yearning? If you're an atheist and you believe we're just monkeys, right? So that's great, but it doesn't line up with anything you're doing. It doesn't line up with your deep ideals and your hopes for a better future. And I was never really confronting that contradiction. And so for me, this moment was not just a moment of wow, I get to see what I've been missing my whole life is that really that God exists, but really that I'm Jewish. I'm really Jewish, and that's why I am like I am, and that's so that night changed my whole life. And I'll just tell you as a quick sign up because it's a crazy story. It's Rosh Chodesh. It's kind of connected to Rosh Hashanah and the shofar blast. That night, I heard a loud sound after I was next door. I was in an apartment in a building right next to the house. And I thought they were having a party next door, and I heard this loud sound. I went over to hear where the sound was coming from, and it wasn't from the frat house. It was dark. It means they're out somewhere else that night. So I'm like, oh, it's so weird. So I'm looking for where that sound's coming from, and it's getting louder. And I couldn't find it. I couldn't spot it. So I just start closing my windows. I close my window. I close my porch door, and the sound's getting louder and louder. So now I'm thinking it must be in the apartment building somewhere. So I'm just looking for anywhere where there's holes or leakages or places where the sound could be getting in. There was no any more places, and now I'm starting to get very nervous because I'm thinking that either I'm having a psychological breakdown or I'm having an acid flashback. But none of these options are good. And I pretty much got down in a fetal position and I covered my ears with a blanket and I said, please stop, please stop, please stop. And the sound was getting louder and louder and louder and louder and louder. Finally, it stopped. The next day, I told my girlfriend, who is now Baruch Hashem, my wife, and I want to start keeping Shabbat. Rav Kook, he was a very transformative leader. He was the first chief rabbi of Israel. He was a major Kabbalist. He was a big fan of Rebbe Nachman as well. He was a very original thinker and writer. And Rav Kook says that there's two types of tshuva. There's two types of returning to Hashem, and souls are like predestinated for these tshuvas, right? The majority of times, Rav Kook says, most souls are destined for gradual tshuva. That means over the course of days, weeks, months, or years, there's like a steady climb, return, obviously running and returning up and down, but it's not a matter of like, let's go for it. It's a slow process. But he says that there's some souls that are designated for like sudden tshuva, like in hockey, it's like sudden death.
Yeah.
So sudden tshuva, like they realize Hashem exists and they just start wanting to do everything. And it's not because that's like they call it Baal Tshuva syndrome. It's like in their soul, they have to do that. That's what they're supposed to. So I was one of those souls. Like I started to keep Shabbat immediately. I started to keep kosher soon after that. And my wife showed me a YouTube video of a sound that was being heard all around the world, but nobody knew where it was coming from. And I started to get the chills because it was the same sound that I heard the night, but I didn't really want to tell her about it because I didn't want her to think I was crazy. Right. And so I said, Lenore, what's that sound? So she goes, you don't know what it is? I said, no. She goes, that's the shofar blast.
Wow.
So then I look up online, like Chabad.org, what does the shofar blast really mean? I know I heard it as a kid growing up in Rosh Hashanah, and it said that when Mashiach comes, there's going to be a shofar that's heard all around the world, and it's going to cause everybody to want to come back to Hashem. And Rebbe Nachman speaks about the fact that there are these malachim, these spiritual forces in the world, that they're carrying around these little shofars. And whenever they find lost objects, they blow their shofar so they can return. To return lost objects.
Wow.
So, and it's so crazy now that I go every year to Uman Rosh Hashanah. It's like the biggest day of the year for me. And the whole thing is revolving around the shofar blast. And it's like, I don't know, in retrospect, I could see like Rebbe Nachman's fingerprints and everything, But anyway, that's Bekitzer. Wow. That's my short story.
Yeah, that's sheesh.
Isn't that beautiful?
That's powerful. That's very beautiful. So let's talk about Rebbe Nachman. And before we get into like some practical teaching, how do I apply, some of Rabbeino's teachings to my life? I think maybe it'd be important to help us understand, I guess. How did you find
Rebbe Nachman?
Rebbe Nachman.
Okay. So I'll tell you, it's pretty ironic. My wife, I told you when we were in the car, my wife had a trouble. She's from Israel. They have a very different culture in Israel. It's a very warm culture, but it's also very family oriented. It's like as soon as we talk, we click and we connect in a very deep way. She had trouble making friends here. There was an initial connecting, but then nothing more than that, and she got hurt from it. And so I'm like, listen, if I'm making this girl leave her country, she doesn't want to leave. She doesn't believe Jews should even be outside of the land. And now she's here in America with me, and she doesn't even like where we are. So I didn't bring her here so she'd be miserable, So I'm like, maybe I'll bring her closer to my mom. I feel like she would hit it off with my mom. And maybe get closer to New York. There's got to be a lot of Israelis in New York. So I brought her to New York.
By the way, Rob, do you want a water?
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, I don't know.
This never happens.
Look, Cheyenne, you can be our. She knows. This never happened.
Yeah, never. This is crazy. If we do this, how's this?
Can you please fix this?
I'm trying to. Trust me.
This never happens when we do lives. It's always good.
How is this? We hold it. There's a lot of Israel. I was about to say the same thing.
Yeah, right. I know that there is, but we had trouble finding them. I don't know why, but we had trouble connecting to them.
Is this okay? No, don't worry. We adjust. It's a dark. How's the microphone? If we hold it, is that better?
It's fine.
It's not a ringing endorsement.
I just put it on. You guys, I want to make sure it's clear though.
Do you guys want us to spend time trying to make the audio better, or is it good enough that you can hear us good?
Oh man, it's the connection that's choppy. Not again. Holy moly.
Are you on the one down here?
I am. See, it's the arrow downstairs. Yes, a good fix though for people watching is to leave the app real fast with a hard reset, then come back in and it's usually back. Okay. Thank you, Cheyenne. That's why she's our moderator. Okay.
It's
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
I don't understand why it's.
It's not us. It's not us.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. So so I ended up, I brought her to New York. My cousin had just gone into real estate, and she said, there's a lot of young Israelis in Regal Park area in Queens. I didn't know it. We went there. We found the place, and my wife, I took her to a Shabbaton where it was all Israelis. I was like so excited to bring her to a place where it's like literally all Israelis. They barely speak any English. Like, this is perfect for my wife. She's gonna be so comfortable. And it ended up being, because they only spoke Hebrew there, which was great for her. I had no way of communicating with anybody there for the 25 hours we were there. So on the other hand, I love reading, and I was in the beginning stages of my journey. And so for me, like, I see all these books in this house, and I actually see these black books over here. I didn't know what it was. And even though he had a lot of books, I just felt like this magnetic pull to the Qumran. And I went over to it, I picked it up, and I'm like opening up, and I read the introduction. And the introduction starts to speak about Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, the writer of the Zohar, the transformative figure who brought Kabbalah to the masses. And I don't know, this unbelievable story from the Gemara about how Rabbi Shimon told the whole Jewish establishment that the Torah would never be forgotten. And Rebbe Nachman then goes on to say, and it's all in the merit of Rabbi Shimon that it wouldn't be forgotten. And he brings the pasuk that the Gemara shows that it wouldn't be forgotten. But Rebbe Nachman's novelty is that Rabbi Shimon was alluding to himself in the verse, and you see it within the Sofei Tevot, the last letters of the words, "It won't be forgotten from the mouth of his children," which spells Shimon. Actually spells Yochai. Which is Shimon Bar Yochai. And then he brings another pasuk, and it says Shimon. I never really saw people use the first letters and the last letters to derive out new meanings. But it really wasn't that. I'm thinking a lot about it since then. It reminded me when I got to Israel, and when I got off the plane, and I felt like I was home for the first time, even though I'd never been there. I had that same feeling when I started learning Quran, like, this is the Bechina of this, and this is the Bechina of that. This is the sun, and the sun gives light to the moon. And it was a different, like, it was not just different, it just felt like home. I don't really know how to explain it. And I was hooked, like, as soon as I started learning that first lesson with Quran, my life started to change. Wow. And I just spent hours every single day just poring over it. And I'm the type of person that I don't care about many things, but whatever I do, I care a lot about. Yeah. And so for me, it was just like hours and hours and hours every day of looking at that first lesson for a long, long, long time. Wow. But then ultimately what ended up happening, which happens to a lot of Breslovers, is they fall in love with Rebbe Nachman's teachings. They give you so much encouragement, so much wisdom. They're eye-opening, they're paradigm shifting. There's no words to explain what Rebbe Nachman's teachings do for you. But ultimately there's a cap, and there's like a wall that you hit, because Rebbe Nachman says that the main thing is action. Like, no matter how beautiful and wondrous these teachings are, they're going to change your life when you do them, right? And so for me, I grew up being a very deep thinker, but not a deep doer. I was always in my mind. Yeah, but never like acting out my thoughts, right? That was part of my struggles in life. It was like I felt like I always had a lot of potential, and it never actually translated to actual reality. So, But because I was struggling so much, and that's what I was speaking about before, Rebbe Nachman says that when a person starts to draw close to Hashem, he often finds that he feels Hashem distancing himself from you. And it's a very painful experience. And many people, because of that, they stop. Comes Rebbe Nachman to tell you that really all distancing is for the sake of being brought closer.
Wow.
And then all of a sudden, you have a whole different way of looking at it, especially you guys as, future converts, because with Hashem will get good news in the dark. When everything flips, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, this process is very hard. And there's going to be a lot of times where you think you're going to be there, and then you get pushed away, and then you think you're close, and you feel like something unexpected happens, and now I have to look. So what is all of that?
Mm-hmm.
In a very paradoxical way, it's Hashem bringing you closer to Him, right? And so now it's like, instead of woe is me, and what's wrong with me, and what's wrong with us, and why can't we do this? It's like, this is Hashem bringing me close to Him. How do I understand that? I don't, right? But now I have courage to keep moving. I have encouragement to keep pushing, because I realize this is coming from His love. So
Wow.
Things like that for me, especially coming from a place of just struggling so much in many areas of my life.
Yeah.
So that was so encouraging for me, that the struggle was not because there's some inherent flaw in my being. I'm not incapable of being fixed or healed. I'm just Hashem just loves me.
Mm-hmm.
This is what it looks like.
Yeah.
So what ended up happening was, though, because of that, you start to have a lot of distress, and you start to have a lot of challenges that maybe you didn't even have before you started looking for Hashem.
Yeah.
Right? And so for everyone, it's different. There's a spectrum of it. Some people, it's just I'm frustrated.
Mm-hmm.
Some people, I have financial issues. Some people, I have health issues. Some people, I'm having trouble having kids. Some people, my relationship with my spouse is a mess, right?
Mm-hmm.
So for me, because of my issues with depression, it kind of culminated in a very, very critical, acute mental health episode where I became severely depressed for years. And my wife stuck with me the whole time.
Yeah.
Which, every day I cry to Hashem with gratitude, because it really doesn't make any sense. I'm a very loyal person, but if you're with a person who's just sitting in their bed, I'm not talking about I'm moody.
Mm-hmm.
A person who's severely depressed, they're sitting on their couch or their bed, and they're crying all day, saying horrible things about themselves, not moving, not doing anything, and it just looks like it's getting worse and worse. Mm-hmm. She's coming from a foreign country, right? She's with a person who's clearly unstable, and she didn't sign up for that, right? I was happy when she met me. And for years, I'm saying literally years, it was just getting worse and worse and worse and worse, until I literally couldn't take it anymore, and I checked myself into a psych ward. That was after getting psychiatric help.
Sheesh.
That was after seeing many therapists and psychiatrists, trying many different medications, and even doing shock therapy, which is last result.
Wow.
I lost memory because of it. It's something that most people don't ever do. They only see in horror movies. And it didn't help me. Nothing helped me, because my problem, my illness was in my soul. So I just, I checked myself into a psych ward. I'm I don't know what else to do. I feel like I'm a danger to myself at this point. I had 2 little kids. I was unemployed. My wife was supporting us in the form. It was just so I went in the psych ward, and when I got there, I'm sitting in my hospital gown, and I'm seeing all these other people there, and I'm wow, this is hell. Rabbi Nachman says that people say that there's this world and then there's hell. He says no, this world is Gehenna. It's not this. It's not after this. It could be right now. And so for me, it was I've hit the bottom. My life has totally spiraled out in ways that I couldn't possibly imagine. Everything that I tried to do has blown up in my face. And it's not because I'm a bad person or I didn't want good things. It was all based on my own hishtadlut, my own I want to do this. I should do this. I should try and do this. It had nothing to do with bringing Hashem into my life. And so I'm sitting there and I'm crying, and I think in retrospect, someone actually pointed out to me, it was like the first interview I ever did. He's like, "Oh, you had bitul," and I was like, "Oh, yeah, that's true." I reached a point of actual self-nullification. I realized I can't do anything. And it was at that point that I finally said to myself, well, like, if I can't and my life is ever going to turn around, then Hashem, you're really going to have to. And if you care about me as much as Rebbe Nachman says you do, and I believe that you do, and if you run the world as much as Rebbe Nachman says that you do, and I believe that you do, then I'm going to have to give you enough time during the day to hear all of what's going on with me so that you can work it all out, because I can't do it. And that was the beginning of not Rebbe Nachman in my life theoretically, but in reality, because that was when I made a promise to myself that I would start to do an hour of hitbodedut every day. At that moment.
Wow.
In the hospital. And I said that I will do this for the rest of my life if you save me. And I said, and I'm not talking about surviving. I'm not talking about coping. I'm talking about really living. I want to live a good life. I believe it that you can help me do this, but I'm going to need to give you all my stuff. And I got a lot of stuff. It's going to take a lot of time, at least an hour. And so that was the beginning of like the change of everything.
And how long ago was this?
That was probably 7 years ago. 6 years ago.
Wow. And there's people that messaged too. They said his testimony is universal. Last year I felt the same way. What brought me back was reconnecting with God.
Wow.
Somebody said I'm there in my life now. Wow.
So I'll tell you, like, just that, speaking about how Hashem brings people together. I went to Miami to do a podcast, or I don't know if it was a podcast back then. It was a class with Gedalia Fenster. My students in Queens encouraged me to go speak to him. They really love him. I didn't know of him. They're like, you got to talk to him. You guys should connect. It would be so amazing. So I went to Miami, and when we started speaking just outside of the class, he realized that I have a social work background. I have a degree in substance abuse counseling, and I have my own experiences in it. So he's like, why don't you come to my clinic? He owns substance abuse clinics. And he runs them during the day. Most people think he's just like teaching or whatever. He owns like multiple substance abuse clinics. That's like his main job. So he invited me over to the clinic to run a group. First, just to see it. He goes, you want to run a group? And I was like, oh my gosh, I haven't run a group in like 10 years.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, fine. So I ran a group. And there was a guy there, looked like a hipster. Yeah. He was really tall, thick, dark skin, looked Spanish. And I see him like really intensely looking at me as I'm giving over this group and speaking about how, listen, I'm not just speaking as a clinician. I've been in this place. And I started to tell my whole story about hitbodedut and Rebbe Nachman. And like, so he comes up to me after the class and he's like, David, I just want to tell you something. I know it may not look like it, but my mother's Jewish. And I'm Jewish. And he has a Spanish name, and his dad. And then he came to another group. I ended up running a second group. I almost missed my plane because I was doing this. And he came to that, and then he told me, he's like, David, you should know, I've never stuck through one group since I've been in rehab. So he was addicted to heroin. He had been on it for years. And this was like his multiple time of trying to get clean. He was in Gedalia's rehab clinic this time. And he said, this is the first time I've ever been to 2 groups, let alone one group. He's like, can I connect you outside of here somehow, like some way? I was like, yeah, sure. So I gave him my number. He lost it. He got it back from Gedalia. He reached out to me a few weeks later. And he said, David, can you just tell me again about this hitbodedut thing? How do you do it? How does it work? Whatever. And I told him. He texted me, like, I don't know if it was a day later, a couple days later. He's like, David, I just did 45 minutes of hitbodedut. And I'm crying. And I realized, like, I'm missing God in my life. That's why I'm in so much pain.
Sheesh.
He, since then, he got clean. He left the rehab center.
Wow.
He went out to Israel to go to yeshiva.
No way.
Yeah.
Wow.
I was there when he was there at Aish. And he's a good friend of mine now. And a student, and he's been clean for over a year. We celebrated together. So anyway, like it's just like how Hashem sends you to different places to do things. Like Baruch Hashem, thank God. I never wanted to get old, but like, when Hashem has you on a mission, He'll take you wherever He wants you to go and however it needs to happen. And so
that's beautiful.
So Baruch Hashem, the point of that was that you can't not have that experience. This is what Rebbe Nachman says, and he's not the only one who says it. When a Jew sits down and talks to Hashem from the bottom of his heart, he will feel God, and he will want to connect to Him. That's what he said. He said the whole reason that people are far from Hashem is because they're not happy. He says they're not happy because they don't have tranquility of mind. And he says they don't have tranquility of mind because you can only have tranquility of mind by having secluded meditation every day.
Can we stay on this topic for a minute?
Sure.
You mentioned hitbodedut. We have a very diverse audience. And so can you explain what is hitbodedut? For those if you can't hear me, can you explain what is hitbodedut and how do you get that started in your life? Why is that important?
Okay. Hitbodedut comes from the root word boded. Boded means to be secluded. In Israel, during the whole COVID epidemic, right? What do we call it here?
The epidemic here?
No. So what do we call it? What happened as a result? Isolation.
Isolation.
Right? Went to isolation, right? So in Israel, it wasn't called isolation. They called it bidud. The country was in a collective state of hitbodedut. Everyone was isolated, right?
Yeah.
Right. So Rebbe Nachman says that there's two ways to be isolated. There is that type of way, which is not good for you, right? There's type of isolation that you're isolated from friends and family, is not good for you, right? But then there's self. I don't know what the word is. You move yourself to be isolated alone for positive reasons. To disconnect yourself from the external of life and to plug into your soul, right? So that's pretty much what it is.
Okay.
When you're busy all the time with work, with your family, all good things, but you get stuck on the surface level of life. And before you know it, you're like a hamster on a wheel, and you're just moving from thing to thing to thing to thing.
Yeah.
And you're like, why do I feel stressed? Why do I feel sad? Why do I feel overwhelmed? Why do I feel unhappy? And the reason is because you're a person, you're not a hamster, right? So how do I get to like tap back in and to like find myself? You have to take a deep breath. You got to slow down, right? Rabbi Nachman says, what's the best way to slow down? Go alone somewhere. That's what Rebbe Nachman says. The best place to do this would be outside in nature, because it like taps you into that experience much quicker, much easier. Right? And it's not just Jews. I mean, there's so many people who say, I feel when I'm out in nature, I feel close to God. Right? Rebbe Nachman brings many deep reasons why that is, because souls are in all of those physical elements. When you come to pray to Hashem in those places, all of the souls that are in the grass and are in the trees, right? They've been waiting for you to come there to speak to God from that place, and they elevate with you, like unbelievable stuff. Yeah, so you feel it more when you're out there.
That makes sense though, because I feel like a lot of people have like retreats, so it's like in a foresty place, and it's people all different types of backgrounds of beliefs and spirituals, but it's always a retreat type of place, right? In nature.
Yeah. I had a student had an unbelievable chidush, which means novelty. I thought he did this a lot, but what was the place in which we were with God? It was in the Garden of Eden, right? Why garden specifically? So he said maybe the garden never changed. Maybe the garden was like the only place that never lost its way. So whenever you enter back into a garden or a forest, right, like it's still with God. And so like when you go back in that place, it's much easier to connect from that place because it didn't devolve, right? And so, that's what hitbodedut. Hitbodedut literally means to seclude yourself. Now, what people usually associate hitbodedut with is talking to Hashem like he's your best friend, right? Because that's what Rebbe Nachman says is the best way to utilize that time. But hitbodedut literally means just to be alone with Hashem, to be alone with God. That could be in your own room, right? That could be in your car. Rebbe Nachman says best place to do it is to be out in nature if you can. Now, Rebbe Nachman says that the best way to utilize that time of being alone with Hashem is to do it for at least 1 hour a day.
Okay.
Now, it might sound like a crazy amount, for all of us, it does. Now, but Emet, if you really push yourself and think about it more, you realize it's not so crazy. Mm-hmm. Because if in reality nothing happens unless Hashem wants it to.
Sure.
Right? So my quality of matrimonial peace with my spouse is really if Hashem wants that to be. Right? My ability to have a job and receive an income which meets my financial needs, I'll only have it if Hashem wants me to. Sure. Right? And the list goes on. If that's really true, then there's no minimum amount of time that I need to go talk to him about it because I need all of these things to be working out.
Sure.
Right? So it's a part of the mirage of the world to make it feel like it's on autopilot. Right? And you're being the hamster on the wheel almost. It leads you into that delusion of like, oh, I just need to work harder. I just need to say the right thing to my wife. I just need to like do this and you just see like it doesn't work or like it doesn't help or it helps for a little bit and then it peters out, right? Because ultimately Hashem didn't bring you to this world that you should do it, right? He wants you to be able to experience the beauty of life by becoming a vehicle and a vessel for his light, right? So you need to include him in how do you connect to anybody? You talk to them, right?
Makes sense.
Yeah. So that's it. So then the unbelievable mechanism that happens, and so many people experience this, is by removing all the sensory stuff, my cell phone, my television, all the different things that I usually have on me. Go to a space which cultivates tranquility of mind and separation from the secular, modern, fast-moving world. Okay. I'm able to enter into a state of thinking my own thoughts, feeling my own feelings, right? Like if you just watch the news for an hour, you're gonna feel like you want to kill everybody around you. The world's coming to an end, right?
Yeah,
like all of these, but then like if you don't watch, like no, everything's okay.
Yeah, that's very true.
Right? So like hitbodedut is like to allow you to feel your own feelings and think your own thoughts, which we're not usually doing because we are receiving so much information and inputs and influences, and we don't think that we are, but we really, really, really are. And hitbodedut allows you to disconnect from that and to connect to yourself. And so by talking, because talking, Rebbe Nachman says, is the mechanism for taking potential and turning it into reality. Okay? So if you have thoughts or you have dreams that you want to happen, so those only exist in potential. Yeah. How do you actualize them? Through speech. The quality of speech. The word for speech, dibur, is the same word as davar, a thing. Because a thing is the product of speech. It says that Hashem created the world into existence by speaking it into existence. Yeah. Why do we have to know that? How come he didn't think the world into existence? He can do anything. He doesn't even really speak. To teach us that speech creates reality. Yeah. Right? So the best way to do it would be to talk for that time. And you'll see that just by opening up for that period of time, or at least trying to build up to it, that time alone, out in seclusion, in nature, you start to connect to something very, very deep. You start to open up within yourself. You start to experience your own thoughts, your own feelings, levels of goodness and health and wellness that you didn't know were already inside of you. They're not outside of you, right? You know, even in the secular world, or you go to a therapist, I was speaking to you about this before, you know, it's coming from the perspective, the Western model is that you're sick, right? And we need to try to ameliorate your symptoms. We need to try and help you cope with your sickness. Comes Hasidus, comes the Baal Shem Tov, comes Rabbi Nachman to say, no, you're not sick, you're healthy. You just have struggles that are kind of like layered onto your healthiness. Yeah. You're not sad and depressed. You're happy, but you struggle with sadness. Yeah. Right? So that might not seem like a big shift, but it's actually a huge shift, because if in the beginning I have to go find it, that means it's outside of me. That's a mountain that I may never be able to climb. But if in reality, even if it's behind 10 million layers, but if it's inside of me, there's a chance. I can do this. And belief itself is what propels you to be able to actually heal. So,
wow. No, I'm so glad you're talking about this, because I think we mentioned something. I talked to you about this too. Trying to get yourself to a place where you can talk to Hashem. Sometimes it can be very difficult, especially like going through life, and sometimes just life's challenges just crushes you down, and sometimes we can even get to a point that we feel that it's God's fault, and God did this to me. So sometimes we can have these things that we're going through in life, and we feel like I don't even know what to say. Right. So how do we get past that? How do we get past not even having anything to say to Hashem?
Right. Okay, great question. So Rebbe Nachman addresses this in the 9th lesson in Likutei Moharan. And Rebbe Nachman says that when a person wants to talk to Hashem but he can't, these are like figurative clouds. Right? Just like clouds hover over you during the day when it's a cloudy day and you just feel gloomy and you feel stuck.
Yeah.
And you see, like, if in the next moment the clouds open up, you're like, oh, everything's fine. Yeah. So Rebbe Nachman explains that when you come to speak to Hashem, there are klipot, there are negative forces which do not want you to connect. They present itself like clouds. What are those clouds? I can't talk. Or I have nothing to say.
Yeah.
Or I don't feel myself even saying anything real, or I feel like I'm rambling, or I'm not motivated to talk, or I want to, but I can't do it. All of those are clouds. So Rebbe Nachman says that how do you break through darkness? And this is a big concept in Chassidus, is that a little bit of light banishes a lot of darkness. Okay? So Rebbe Nachman says, what is light? It's truth. So a little bit of truth banishes a lot of the confusion. So what is a little bit of truth? Your truth. Rebbe Nachman says if you simply dig down deep, call them kishkas, hold on to your kishkas, and you say the truth that's in your heart, you will break through all of that darkness. Wow. Even if that truth is, I'm scared. If that's your truth and you scream it out, you'll see that will actually turn into speaking more. It's because a little bit of light banishes a lot of darkness. It expands, right? But you have to start with a little bit. What's the little bit? Rebbe Nachman says, just say the freaking truth. Whatever's the truth, just say it, right? I'm overwhelmed and I don't know what to do. I need help. I need help. I need help. Whatever it is, if you come up there and you say, thank you for this. This is going great. I really, this is kind of hard for me. I really like your help. That's not your truth. Your truth is, I'm scared out of my mind. I need to see you in my life. You need to help me.
That's the light.
Yeah, that's the light. And when you start to say that little bit of truth, that light breaks a lot of the darkness and you can start to open up from that place. That's why Rebbe Nachman says that when you come to speak to Hashem, if you can't talk to him, that's what you should talk to him about.
The fact that you can't
they can't talk because that's your truth. I don't know what to say to you. If that's the truth, that will open up the speech.
I think that's what attracted us so much to doing hitbodedut was like, especially coming from our background before, when it came down to prayer, we always thought it had to be like this perfect situation, right? Like you were saying, it's almost like you almost feel like you have to have the words to speak to Hashem before you even speak to Hashem.
Yes.
So learning about hitbodedut, like it has helped me so much with the time for me to be able to connect with him and to just know I can just talk, right? Especially when we heard the story of King David, how he used to, was it King? I think it was King David, that he used to pray in his bed with like the covers open, right? King David, So that he'll talk to, Hashem with like in his bed with the sheet over. So when I heard that, I was like, I can do that.
You can.
It helped me to just realize it doesn't have to be this perfect moment or this perfect thing, that I can literally just have a conversation.
Right.
And I never looked at it as it's really just a conversation.
Right. I mean, you see it very clearly, like in the Torah, that Avram Avinu is advocating with Hashem to help those people in that city. He's just talking out loud. Does Avram know 100% he's right or Hashem's wrong? Which doesn't really make sense, right? But how am I even fighting with Hashem? You have to be crazy to talk like that. Hashem likes that. Right? That's what, So, and then you have Yitzchak, his son. And it says he's l'suach l'sadeh. He is conversing with Hashem in the field. Why doesn't it say he's talking to him? What conversing? Conversing is like I'm chopping it up with my boy, right?
Yeah.
So but I talk to Hashem like that. Yeah, that's how Yitzchak talked to Hashem, right? And it said that Yitzchak, the gematria, the numerical value of Yitzchak and Rivka, because it said that they both prayed at the same time. It's the only couple that you see that they're both praying at the same exact time in the Chumash for the birth of a child, right?
Wow.
So it says when they're both praying, that's when they were answered. Now, if you take the gematria of Yitzchak and the gematria of Rivka, it comes to the numerical value of tefillah, prayer.
Sheesh.
Right? So and Moshe Rabbeinu, why did you bring me to save the Jewish people? It's just getting worse from them. I'd rather you kill me. He's not saying, thank you, Hashem, for everything. Everything is groovy. He's just saying his truth.
Yeah.
Right? They came to Rebbe Nachman and they asked him, how do I know what real emunah looks like? So he said, look at a Jewish woman. Look at a Jewish child. And that's what real faith is. I told you this story that Rebbe Nachman, when he got sick with tuberculosis, he went to his grandson and he said, please, can you pray for me? There's a very special koach of a child because he's never really done anything wrong. So he's got a certain level of purity, right? So his prayers are answered. So he asked his grandson, can you pray for me? He said, it depends. I really like your watch. Can you give it to me first? Right? Because he's a kid.
Yeah.
Give me your watch and I'll pray for you. You should get better. So Rebbe Nachman gave him his watch. And he said, Hashem, help my grandfather. He gave me the watch I wanted. Help him. And Rebbe Nachman goes, that's real prayer. And his students were like, oh my gosh, how do you speak to Hashem like that? Like, he clearly did this so that he can get a watch. It's like so not holy. It's so not. And Rebbe Nachman said, no, you're wrong. That's real prayer. It says just to say the truth, just to be simple, to say the truth. This is real faith.
Wow. That's I hope you guys are enjoying this. This is just so rich and
just really quick, just to elaborate that, I think that when it comes to that, like you said, when it comes to speaking the truth part of it, you don't think about hitbodedut being like an hour long. You're not realizing it because you can talk to your best friend for you look up and you're like an hour went by so fast.
Right.
When you're in a conversation like that, when you're conversing with them, you're just talking to them and you're just sharing what's on your mind and your heart, and it makes it so much easier.
That's such a good point because I have so many students who come up to me and how do you do an hour? And I never really was able to put my finger on what allows me to do it. I think that's really what it is. I talk to him like that. I don't.
So good.
Yeah, and so
that's so good.
it's true. When you speak to your friend, hours just fly by.
Yeah.
But when you're talking to an authority figure or you're speaking to someone from a very superficial or halfway, it's brutal. And you can't imagine doing it for more than 30 seconds. I don't want to be here, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's probably it.
Well, perfect example, right? Just to even add on to more of that, it's already been an hour and 18 minutes.
Oh wow!
And
they keep saying, "Keep it coming." Do not have him go off.
Right? How timely is that? Though we're talking about when
Wow.
we're having fun with friends, we're talking. You don't pay attention to time.
Right.
And I mean, and here you are. You're sharing with us, and you're sharing with everybody here who's watching, and everybody's going to be listening on the replay, right? It's just this is the perfect example that you're giving us on how to be able to connect and talk to Hashem. So beautiful.
Maybe we should definitely put his link here to connect.
So everybody. For those who just came in, we have the absolute pleasure to have Rabbi David Kalmus. He's an incredible human being. For those who've been on, you've been listening to him. He's just dropping nugget after nugget and just giving us so much encouragement. And he's been a student of Rebbe Nachman for quite some time now. He's just been sharing everything on how to elevate our life, and it's just been beautiful. And so, Rebbe Nachman, I call you Rebbe Nachman.
Right. I have a good start.
Yeah.
I was teaching at Aish last year.
Yeah.
And a guy comes in who never heard of Rebbe Nachman before.
Yeah.
And when he came to Aish, one of his friends at the yeshiva was like, "Yo, you got to come to this Rebbe Nachman class." So he comes to the class, and I'm teaching him Kutzmaran.
Oh wow! What happened?
What is happening?
Wait, how did that happen?
So my lens just popped off.
What? Just
So he comes in and he sees all these guys talking in the class because they're young kids, like 18-year-old, and he's like, please, can we give Rebbe Nachman some respect? And we all realize, like, he thinks that I'm Rebbe Nachman, and we all start dying laughing. Oh my gosh, it was so funny.
I love it. Well, this is Rabbi David Kalmus.
Yes, not Rebbe Nachman. Hopefully, I can be a student of his, a real one, and just try and, really live with his wisdom and his advice in a real way and try and give it to others.
I mean, well, you're giving it to all of us. I think everybody here is definitely blown away. But Rabbi Kalmus has an organization called Tzion Breslov Project, right? And so if you can maybe share, maybe share just a little bit about what that is. And I want to bring this up too, because if you guys, feel it on your heart, if you guys wanted to make a donation to Tzion Breslov Project and what he has going on, to be able to help Rabbi Kellman continue to spread the teachings of Rebbe Nachman, to travel, like the world needs to hear this incredible man. And so so we're going to put a link. He has a PayPal link for Tzion Breslov Project if you guys wanted to donate and to support what he has going on. So
yeah, so so what ended up happening was very organic. It wasn't on purpose at all. When I was in Queens and I was going through this whole transformation that I spoke about, I randomly was walking into a Beit Midrash, a shul, and I saw someone with Likutei Moharan in their hands, and I never saw anybody else with that book in their hands. Mm-hmm. And I said, "Do you learn Likutei Moharan?" It's like that amazing feeling. And I used to be a big Dave Matthews Band fan. But it's like when you see like that other random guy who's a Dave Matthews Band fan, like, you also like Dave Matthews Band, It's like so. I went out there. I was like, "You learn Likutei Moharan?" And he said, "I love it." He said, "But I don't understand anything I'm reading." He said, "Do you know it?" I said, "I don't know if I know it, but I love it. I learn it every day. It's like my favorite thing in the world. It's like my life, Yeah. So he goes, "Can you teach it to me?" Mm-hmm. I said, "I could try. I don't know." So we went in, and it was me and two other guys.
Wow, I didn't know this.
These two guys. It was once a week it started, and then 2 guys turned into 4 guys, turned into 6 guys, turned into 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, and it just kept growing and growing. And then they're like, "We got to do this more than once a week." And then it became twice a week, and it became 3 times a week. And for about 3 years, we were doing 4 nights a week of Likutei Moharan every night from Monday to Thursday night for like 2 hours. And because I was so new to all of this, I didn't know that this doesn't happen in the world. I only heard because someone reached out to the Breslov Research Institute, who created these very unusual to be learning Likutei Moharan 4 nights a week for that long, that intensively, with a chabur, with a group of people really seeking it. And so that was like how everything started. And then these people who became my students really encouraged me. They're like, "David, listen, a lot of people need to hear this. You should really open up an organization." And so I felt really uncomfortable and really unqualified. And I went to someone who was encouraged to me to go to a big tzaddik in Eretz Israel. I traveled to Israel, like literally just to speak to him. Mm-hmm. I spoke to him the last day before I left, and he told me, "You should make the organization, but you should wait a couple of years." So that's what I did. I waited a couple of years. I started it. It's called Tzion Breslov Project, Tzion, Breslov Project. And essentially, I didn't know that when I started teaching, because I never learned like in a normative way from rabbis. I didn't grow up going to yeshivas or learning in institutions. So I didn't know how rabbis teach. So I guess my classes didn't sound like normative Torah lessons that you hear on like Torah anytime, right? I didn't know that. And then like somebody pointed out to me, he's like, your classes are more like therapy sessions. Yeah. And so I was like, "Oh, that's interesting." He's like, you should really try and like bring this out to more people, like in this way. And so really, what is Tzion Breslov Project? It was kind of this organic experience of me and my students having this unbelievable connection to Rebbe Nachman's teachings, learning about them in a very deep way, living with his advice and trying to grow in it, like in an intensive, real way every single day, doing it together as brothers, as friends. And we saw that our lives were all changing in the most beautiful ways. And so let's try and help more people experience that and connect more people to doing that. And because of my background as a social worker and as a mental health therapist, a substance abuse counselor, and then my own struggles with all those things, with depression and anxiety and a learning disability, all of my issues with drugs and with all these things. So between all of that and then my affinity for Rebbe Nachman and learning his works, vociferously, and so it was just to try and give people, especially in our generation, a chance to really hear Rebbe Nachman's teachings in a way that applies and is relevant to them. Because for me, I went to school for psychology for over half a decade, undergraduate, graduate. I read a million research papers and documents and books, and I practiced all different types of psychological modalities, and I myself received them all. And I received every therapy and every therapeutic technique to the extent, like I said, of shock therapy. And there is the Rebbe Nachman's teachings. They are more advanced in psychology now. They're prescient. Everything that psychology has found that is helpful. Rebbe Nachman said this over 200 years ago. So for me, it's like this is a game changer, and it's not just a game changer for religious Jews. It's a game changer for all Jews, and it's not just a game changer for all Jews. It's a game changer for the whole world.
Yeah.
And this was the same exact experience that Rebbe Nachman had. Like, he was by Rebbe Nachman, and in the beginning, he's like, "Oh my gosh, this guy's gonna save my life." And then after that, he's like, "Wow, he could save like all the Jews."
Yeah.
And then he's like, "Oh my gosh, he could save the whole world." Like and it's not when you just look at what he says. I'm not like just like blowing up smoke. It's like who reads these teachings feels something deeply in their mind and their heart and their soul, wants to be a better person, wants to grow, feels like they have tools to be able to practically do it. It's really exciting.
Beautiful.
And Porsche asked, were you able to get off of medication?
Oh, it's a great question. So when I was in the psych ward, at that point, I had been dosed up to like the highest doses of 3 very high intensity acute psychiatric drugs. By the time I got out of there and started to work on the spiritual aspect of things, that is hitbodedut, and actually not just learning Rebbe Nachman teachings, but applying them, I was able to get down to the lowest possible doses of those medications. According to medicine, they're beyond the therapeutic dose, which means they shouldn't be helping me. Because I'm married and because I have 4 kids, Baruch Hashem, if I was alone, I probably would have went off completely and went through that transition, because I'd been on them now for years and I went through a lot of stuff with them. And so your mind changes because of them, your body changes because of them. And so that transition period is very difficult. You have to be like in a really good situation without stressors, without pressure. And so part of my maturity in life came with the fact that my whole life is not just about me.
Sure.
I have a wife who really needs me and to be strong. She's spent 3 years suffering tremendously without complaining at all, without leaving. Like I can't just get off the meds to prove to myself that I can do this at the expense of possibly hurting people around me.
Yeah. Sure.
So at this point, I'm still on those same meds, but on like literally. I cut them up into like little pebbles. I don't want to go all the way because only because I don't want, I'm the sole provider of my family. And not just that, I have a lot of people who are dependent on me at this point. So, but that's the answer. It's a great question.
Beautiful.
Yeah, and just kind of to touch on that, because I like literally have like chills. I'm just listening to your story and just everything, and I'm sitting here and I'm like, wow, like, how you're talking about like Hashem does everything for a reason, right? Because I didn't know you had a background in therapy and all of that stuff. And then literally your students are like, this is a therapy session to me. So it's like Hashem like took you and put you at the lowest and had you go through a lot of this stuff so that you can help others get out of it, but also that you can be therapeutic to people, because your teachings are like you're being therapeutic to them. So I'm
Sure.
just sitting here and I'm like, it's the stories like that. Sometimes we're like, why does Hashem put us in our lowest? Why do we have to go through, the deepest and darkest moments? But everything is always good. And I think that's one of the things that we've learned from Rebbe Nachman's teachings as well, is just the good.
Right.
And us, realizing that even in those darkest moments that he's doing something, like Hashem is actually, he's working something out that you don't know, because what we think is good for us is not nearly what Hashem sees
Right.
for us, or what he's doing and later on down the road. But we can share testimonies about that all the time. And I'm just sitting here and I'm like, wow, like that's why he put you in those situations, so that you can be a living testimony to help and to be that vessel and to share and to help people get out of that.
Right, yeah, no, it's wild. My whole life, like, I've been obsessed with wanting to help people out of difficult situations. And I don't know exactly where it comes from, but I never really had tools beyond compassion to do that. Compassion is really important, but you also need wisdom. Like, it's not enough to have compassion to actually change. You need real wisdom to be able to do it as well. They need to come together.
Yeah.
And so I prayed so much, constantly in my hitbodedut. Hashem, help me to help the people who need it the most. I remember saying that almost every single day. Help me to help the people who need it the most. Before I know it, I'm like in a dungeon, And at the time, I don't understand, like, why. And now, like you said, like, looking back, and obviously I thought a lot about it, like how like fantastical I was to think I could help people who are addicted to drugs, who are like suicidal. Like, why would you ever think you can help those people? You have no experience with those things, right? And now, like, all of a sudden, like, the voice is heard because I'm not like a foreigner, like, I've been there, right? And so it's like the Torah says that Hashem is always bringing you to your innermost ratzon, your innermost will. But a lot of times, almost all the time, we don't actually know how to get there, right? I don't know how to go bring healing to people, but Hashem does.
Yeah.
How does Hashem do that? It could be a total different way than I ever possibly anticipated, right? Right. So, like, this whole experience, like, even let's say Yosef, right? Yosef Atzadik. So Yosef was the favorite one of his father, right? He was the brightest of all the kids. He was the most righteous. He was the most well-intentioned. He had the biggest heart. And he ends up suffering in jail and in exile for 22 years. Yeah. And so if he would have sat there and got stuck, didn't move to the next part, he never would have been able to do, which was what was the whole reason for that whole experience. He ended up being the sole provider of the whole world from that darkness. He came out of that place with a wisdom that he wouldn't have been able to have otherwise, and through that, he fed the whole people in the time of famine. And the Torah speaks a lot about the fact that at the end of history, there is going to be a famine, but it's not going to be a famine of food or drink. It's going to be a famine of consciousness. People will be starved for consciousness, that people will be sleeping, right? So Yosef and people like Yosef have to go through really, really hard, difficult things to be able to come out of that place, and that they themselves wake up and try to help other people wake up. Rabbi Nachman says explicitly that, and you see this almost all the time, the people who suffer the most are the best people in the world. You never hear like this guy who's troubled and trialed with all these different things, and this guy is like, I don't know, you can use any negative word, I don't want to use those words, but it's always the person who's tremendously compassionate and cares and is kind and is sensitive and is, right? It's always that person. So why is it that person? So the answer is like that you have a destiny which is much higher than whatever you think it is.
Yeah.
And Hashem knows that, but we don't know that.
Right.
We don't know how to get there.
Yeah.
Right? And so like, Hashem will continue to put you guys in positions to help more and more people in ways that you didn't imagine. That, like, just like you're doing a podcast now and you guys are doing different things, which I'm sure you never anticipated 5 years ago or 10 years ago you would be doing.
No.
And speaking to the people that you're speaking to, like I told Dara, like just a week ago, I heard people saying like, have you heard the hearts? Like they're blowing up on YouTube. I'm like, you mean Ladaro? And they're like, yeah. And then they're like, you know him? I was like, yeah, that's my student. You know, it's like that whole thing, like this whole thing, like Hashem has big plans for all of us. And I'll just say this story because this story is very short and it's amazing. And it's Rebbe Nachman has stories. He said towards the end of his life that you're not listening to my Torah, you're not waking up for my Torah. I'm gonna have to just start telling you stories. So it sounds like a downgrade, right? Can you imagine your teacher telling you, like, okay, you're not hearing these lessons that I make for you. I'm gonna start telling you bedtime stories.
Yeah.
And you're like, no, I'm out. I'm out. You know, but what the secret of this is that Rabbi Nachman and tzaddikim in general, you can put much bigger light in stories than you can in Torah lessons, because the stories themselves create like a vessel for you to be able to experience big light without being overwhelmed by them.
Ooh.
Right? Whereas if you get a Torah lesson, it could be too much for you from where you're at. Yeah.
You're so right.
So so this is what Rebbe Nachman says, right? So so he starts telling stories at the end of his life. He's busy with this all the time, just like and it wasn't like, hey guys, here, let me tell you a story. They would be in the middle talking about something that's happening in current events, and they would be like, oh man, these people are having such a great time. They're partying like crazy. And Rebbe Nachman is like, I'll tell you a time when people were really happy. And then they thought he was going to start to tell them about it, and he starts to go into one of these very intricate stories that are one of the 13 stories, and they're sitting there like in the beginning, like, oh, what did this really happen? And they realize, like, oh my gosh, he's telling us one of those stories again, and they lose themselves. I can't even imagine what that's like, you know. Right. So anyway, there's this one story. It's not part of the 13 stories, but it's a very famous story. It's told over all the time. Usually, people don't reference that it's Rebbe Nachman who actually told this story, and they don't say the end of the story. And those two parts are really critical. Okay. So what's the story? The story goes like this: there was a Jew who was struggling financially tremendously. Okay, and he was really hurting from this, and he ended up having a dream. And in his dream, he sees that there's a bridge in Vienna, and under this bridge there is treasure in the ground. And it's like a very specific dream. It's not like a mushy-mashy dream. It's like I see exactly what this looks like. I think maybe that's a real place, and there's really something there. And I'm desperate, right? So when he woke up from his dream, he decided, like, what do I have to lose? He goes up to Vienna. He travels to Vienna from Ukraine, and he starts to think about digging, right? So as he's thinking about digging, he thinks to himself, man, if I find something, so people are going to see me doing it, and they're going to ask for the money that they're going to want in, right? And I don't want to give this all up. I'm struggling. So he goes, you know what? There's a security guard over there by the bridge. If I tell him what I'm doing, we'll have to split it half-half. But at least I'll know I'll get my half, right? And nobody will bother the security guard because he's the big buff security guy, right? Sure. So he goes and tells him. And he goes, why do you think that? And he said, well, I had this dream, and there was this bridge, and this is exactly what it looks like. He goes, you choose with your dreams. He goes, I also have dreams. So what? You think, like, because I had a dream one time about this house in Ukraine, and it had this set up and this bed and under the thing, and there was money. Yeah, I had a dream like that one time, but I'm not going to go to Ukraine now to go look for that. And he realizes as he's hearing this whole story of his dream that is like the setup of his house. So he's like, oh, yeah, that's right. It's so crazy. And then he's like, okay, I'm going. And he decides to run back to his house to see maybe that's what he was talking about. So he goes back to his house, and he looks in that place under his pillowcase, or like in that area under his bed. And he sees the treasure that the non-Jewish person was telling about. Whoa. So he says at the end of the story, wow, I've had this treasure under my head this entire time, and I never knew it was there. And then Rebbe Nachman concludes the story by saying that every person has a treasure inside of them, but you need to go to Vienna to find it. And he says that Vienna is the tzaddik. Okay, right? So he says that even though the treasure's in you, it's about you. Nobody's trying to take it away from you. But you're going to have to go to a faraway land to find it. You're going to have to go to something foreign to find it. You're going to have to go to Vienna to find what's been within you all along. And he says that is what Rebbe Nachman is for you. To find the treasure that's always been inside of you, right?
Wow.
And so I don't even know how I started telling that story, but that's what Rebbe Nachman does for people. It's like it seems like it's really all about him, but really it's all about you. Yeah. And he helps you to feel and experience these things, this treasure that's always been inside you.
Holy smokes. That's heavy. You know, nobody could tell stories like Rebbe Nachman.
No, my gosh.
You know, I mean, yeah, it's incredible.
Wow.
How about this, guys? How about before we get off of here, how about we open it up for some Q&A? You okay with
go ahead.
with a couple questions?
Well, somebody right there had a question that I was going to ask what Rabbi thought, but they were like, what is a book recommendation from Rebbe Nachman?
Oh, okay, HK. HK, yes. She said, I need a book recommendation for Rebbe Nachman. What would you recommend?
Okay, so there's a book called Crossing the Narrow Bridge by Breslov Research Institute. We have it here. So this is all of the basic fundamental teachings of Rebbe Nachman, split up into categories. This is a really good starting point. That's one book that you could read. Trying to think about what else might be there. For sure, Rebbe Nachman's stories. If you never looked at Rebbe Nachman's stories, a lot of people have had tremendous life changes from reading these stories. Even if you just read the first story about the lost princess, you start to feel things inside of you that you haven't felt for a long time. I think they're over here.
Which one?
Right there.
Rebbe Nachman's stories. These are his 13 stories, plus they add the additional ones. The one about Vienna that I just said is in there as well. By the way, I'm not making money off of any of these things. This is So this is those are some really good starting points, but it really depends on what you're looking for. Yeah. Like for instance, Rebbe Nachman has a book called Likutei Etzot, which is his advice. So practical advice for every given situation. So if a person's looking for practical advice, so that's the perfect place to start. If you're looking for a basic understanding of what were Rebbe Nachman's beliefs about different ideas, different concepts, and different areas of my life, so that was Crossing the Narrow Bridge. If a person's looking to delve into the depths of Rebbe Nachman's wisdom, so get Likutei Moharan and get that first lesson, volume 1, and and enter into the into the unlimited ocean of Rebbe Nachman's mind and heart. So there's a book for everything. That's what makes Rebbe Nachman very unique, is that despite the fact that he has this unbelievable persona as being not intelligent, and that I can hop it, that I can grasp it, yet Rebbe Nachman's students and himself have created more books than any group of Hasidus besides Chabad Hasidus. There's so much literature that they themselves wrote, that Rabbi Natan, his main student, wrote, that their students wrote. So that there's so much for you. And if you guys want to ask Ladaro after the class, or Ladaro's wife, about certain books or ideas, we're in contact. You can always ask me, and I can give you my best recommendation.
Awesome. EJ wanted to know, are these recommendations good for only religious Jewish brothers and sisters, or how can people that are not Jewish connect with books like this as well?
Sure. Okay. So one of the things that Rebbe Nachman made very clear is that everybody needs to wake up. It's not everyone needs for their life to change. Everyone needs transformation. Everybody needs an elevation, right? Yeah. It's not just for Jews. Now, Jews have a very unique relationship with Hashem, and they have a unique relationship with the Torah. So as a result of that, they are in many ways could be the starting point of that experience for the world, connecting to Hashem in that way and having that elevation. But it's supposed to trickle down to everybody. Yeah, it's a collective consciousness, right? The Torah says very clearly that the land of Israel will spread out throughout the world, and the whole world will become the land of Israel, right? What does that mean that the whole world's going to become the land of Israel? The land of Israel is a consciousness. The Gemara says that when you live in the land, it's like you have a God. When you're outside of the land, it's like you don't have a God, right? So that's the consciousness going to spread. that no matter where you are, you're going to feel God wherever you are. You're going to experience God wherever you are. And that's for everybody. Rabbi Nachman clearly has a lesson in the 10th lesson of Quran where he says that the greatest joy that Hashem gets in the world is when non-Jews realize that Hashem exists and they want to draw close to him. Okay? So you see clearly from Rebbe Nachman that his idea for helping the world, his idea for elevating the collective consciousness was not just for the Jewish people, but was for humanity. And this is something that's very unique about Rebbe Nachman, is that even though he grew up in a shtetl in Ukraine and he had a few hundred students, right? And if you look at, because the Torah is so specific and the things that rabbis speak about are very specific, the fact that Rebbe Nachman's teachings are more universal than any non-religious leader or entrepreneur or forward thinker, it's really remarkable. Rebbe Nachman's teachings are applicable to everybody at every time, to men, to women, to children, to adults. I mean, I'm just like, I tell my kids these stories that we just said before they go to sleep at night.
Wow.
Now, I was talking to Daryl about this. Do you know any story that a 70-year-old, a 40-year-old, a 20-year-old, a 10-year-old, and a 5-year-old, and a 3-year-old could all enjoy equally? Actually. Not like I enjoy because you're enjoying it. Rebbe Nachman's stories, like, everyone can have their life changed. For a little kid, it could be like the fantasy of life coming up before their eyes. And for someone like me or Ladera, it's like, oh my gosh, I've been sleeping my whole life. Right? But either way, it's equally exciting for both of us. And that's the power of Rebbe Nachman. He's able to connect to everybody. And Rebbe Nachman himself said explicitly, I don't want to say so many things about what he said about himself. That's for another class. But he said that you think that you need me. But it's not just you that needs me. He says all the Jewish people need me. And he said it's not just all the Jewish people that need me. The whole world needs me. Okay?
Wow.
So how he says things like that about himself, we'll have to talk about that another time. So yeah, it's for everybody. And in terms of what's something that you can learn that would apply to everybody, I know that there's a garden of Emunah that's like for the nations. I think that Rav Arush has a book like that for the non-Jewish world. Yeah,
Emunah?
yeah. But
One of my favorites too.
yeah. So I think that would be a good place, and I think that's a good place to start. But you see more and more as time is going on, and more people are connecting to Breslov, especially English speakers. You're just seeing more literature come out for more diverse groups of people. Like there's many female therapists now who are coming out with Breslov literature. You see many social workers now who are utilizing Breslov literature. I know someone who got his PhD and wrote his whole thesis on Rav Natan's lesson about on his exposition about finding the good and believing in yourself, and how this is like the most transformational psychological modality that there is, right? So, and Rebbe Nachman said it explicitly. He said that when you see my teachings are being studied across the world, you can know that the world is about to experience a collective uptick in consciousness and elevation. And so you see it clearly. 50 years ago, nobody knew who Rebbe Nachman was. Just a couple years ago, there was almost 100,000 people in Uman for Rosh Hashanah, and Rebbe Nachman predicted that. Now, either he's a crazy sycophant, or he knew exactly what he was talking about. It's happening.
You say 50 years ago, nobody knew?
Most people didn't know who Rebbe Nachman was now.
Wow.
I can believe that though, just even based off of our audience, and then kind of when we're talking about Rebbe Nachman, a lot of people are not really aware still of his teachings. I'm sure it's a lot more than what it was, but I think that awakening of who Rebbe Nachman is and his teachings is coming alive, and so many people are they're feeling so much closer to Hashem when they are reading his teachings, and like you said, because a lot of it is just. It's so just like logical, like it makes so much sense. I feel like you can connect with it, and it's not in this like foreign way, you know what I mean? And I think that's why it really stood out, for us, and we connected with it so much.
Right.
I said the same that I told you earlier.
Yeah. Well, Rebbe Nachman himself said that the more that one elevates themselves spiritually, in a paradoxical way, the more they become closer to the normative person. Right? Where you might think I'm going to become disassociated now because I'm trying to grow closer to God, and maybe not everybody's busy with that.
Yeah.
But he says that really once you get to the peak of that, then you can connect to anybody. And you see clearly with Rebbe Nachman's teachings, like they speak to everybody, and he talks in a way that's like, he even has a whole Torah where he calls you his brother. Like, you don't see any other rabbi calling you brother. You're like, listen, brother, like, you gotta, you're gonna get through this. Nobody talks like that. Yeah. And this is the greatness of Breslov. And even I was speaking, I had a secular friend who was over my house, and I was explaining what Uman's like, and how it's like, just imagine like a group of people. Like I told you, I was a big Dave Matthews Band fan, so I used to travel around the country and even around the world to go to his concerts. And when you go there, you have people who have had their life changed by his music, right? But that's just music. And even though music is very powerful, at some point it's not going to infiltrate my relationship with my wife. I'm not going to be able to make my relationship with my wife better because I listen to this music, right? Sure. I'm not going to be able to be a better father because I listen to this music. I might be inspired by it. I might be made happy by it. But there's like a cap to what it can do for me, right? So I said, now imagine that Dave Matthews was also a philosopher and a teacher and a doctor and a therapist. And he was advanced in all of those things and had ideas about them that nobody ever spoke of, right? Now imagine like that people around the world had actually listened to and had their life change in every single facet of their life and had it improved and transformed in every way possible from that figure. And now imagine all of them coming together one day in the year to crown Hashem King, right? And to do that together. So imagine what that's like. I said there's just the amount of brotherhood that's there. You don't know who's a rabbi. You don't know who is in business. You don't know who's religious. You don't know who's secular. You don't know who's who because everyone there is just brothers. There's like a brotherhood. There's a love. There's no judgment, right? You don't. And so I was explaining that in the religious world, this is a huge chiddush. That nobody judges you. That there's no power dynamic. That there's no right. That's unusual. So he said, David, it's not just unusual in the religious world, it's also unusual just in the world. Sure. Right? And I was like, oh yeah, that's true. Like, and that's what I thought. The first time I went to Uman, I'm like, there's nothing like this in the world. That was like the whole inspiration for me to make Tzion Breslov project was like, if what's going on in this little place in Ukraine could spread out throughout the world, that same level of brotherhood and non-judgment and love and like desire to want to grow closer to something that's real and doing it together, like that's Geula. That's like when the Torah speaks of redemption, like that's what it is. Like
I believe that, yes, 100%. And that's one thing that we found, I think, too, why we've connected so much to Breslovers, is that their understanding of just like the love and relationships and connection, because every time that we do meet somebody who is Breslov, they have this like just demeanor of like just so much love and understanding and patience. And they also, and this is just me, my experience, what I've experienced. I've noticed their emunah is a lot higher as well too, even through like dark times and challenges. Like they really understand that, oh, this is for the good. Like this is for the good, right? And so and that's helped us a whole lot too. Yeah. Somebody had a question for you, actually. Maybe it was actually Karen.
Hi, yes. Karen. Said I would. Did you see a difference in the teachings of self-worth in Christianity versus Judaism? Growing up, I in Christianity, I did hear and see teaching of self-worth and love yourself and things like that. But in Judaism, it's more on a heightened level, right? Because I mean, I think that's one of the key foundations in Judaism is loving yourself, right? Because it talks about loving your neighbor, right, as you would love yourself, right? Because in actuality, the only way that you can, it's like to the extent that you love yourself will be the extent that I can love you.
Right, exactly.
So in Judaism, it's just on a very, very heightened level. But yeah, I was taught some different aspects of self-worth in Christianity. That's a good question. I would like to study more. Any suggestions on where I can attend?
It depends where you live. If you live in Israel, so I'd love to have you in my class.
New Jersey.
If you live in New Jersey, I have a cousin who I had the zchut of exposing Rebbe Nachman's teachings to, and he is now having a chabur. He has a weekly lesson in Likutei Halachot, which is Rebbe Natan's magnum opus, and it's really unbelievable. I've heard the audio. He's doing an amazing job. He's a nurse practitioner. He's had his life changed through these teachings as well. So I can try to connect you to him. He's in Highland Park. That's in New Jersey. But I guess it really depends on where you are. The challenge with Breslov, if I would say such a thing, is that Rebbe Nachman highly encouraged Jews to live in Israel, because he said that for a person to reach their full spiritual potential, you can only do it in the land of Israel. Okay, so because Rebbe Nachman's students so believe in the words that he say, because they've seen everything that he says bear out to be true, so most of them move to Israel as a result. So it's hard to find classes, because it's one thing to, this is just my personal, it's important to say, it's something that I feel very strongly about. There's a whole different world between a person who learns Rebbe Nachman's teachings and knows them really, really well, but only knows them on the outside, meaning he doesn't do the things that Rebbe Nachman actually says to do, which there are people who know much more than me, but they don't necessarily talk to Hashem for an hour a day, or they don't necessarily get up for Tikkun Chatzot, they don't get up for Nates, they don't go to Uman for Rosh Hashanah, right? Different things that Rebbe Nachman highly encouraged, right? So there is a what happens is usually the students are a reflection of the teacher. You know, Rebbe Nachman said that it's impossible to understand the tzaddik as he is, because he's at a much higher level, right? He's achieved something that's very great, that's like transcendent, right? So how can you ever connect to him then if you can't understand him? Yeah. So he says that if you take a stamp and you look at a stamp, it looks backwards, right? But if you stamp it onto a piece of paper, it flips, right, and now it's clear, right? So, but the stamp is only a reflection, right? The ink is only now a reflection of the actual stamp. It's not the actual stamp itself; it's just the reflection, right? So Rebbe Nachman says you can't understand the tzaddik, but you can understand his students, because the students are always a reflection of the teacher, right? And so I just highly recommend that if anybody's interested in learning Breslov, please, 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 because Breslov is fire. So Rebbe Nachman said, my fire is going to burn until Mashiach comes. Now, fire can either light up your family and light up your life, or fire can destroy things, right? Learn from people who do and practice what they teach. Don't just look for people who are very intelligent, who are wise. That's also very good. It's important to have a wise person. But Rebbe Nachman made it clear, and the Torah makes it clear, that the main thing is action. You want to have a teacher who's teaching you Rebbe Nachman's teachings, that does the things that Rebbe Nachman says. That's when it'll change you, because you'll see a lot of times people will learn from teachers talking about hitbodedut, and the students don't do hitbodedut. Usually it's because the teacher doesn't do hitbodedut. Okay, and even though he doesn't say that, that's the way it works.
Got it. Any online shares?
So I give online shiurim on Tzion Breslov project. We have a weekly class on Rebbe Nachman's stories. We have a live chabura. We have about 50 men and almost 30 women. It's amazing, very, very special. I've never done anything like it. It's been like the most life-changing class that I've had the chance to be a part of. I also have a weekly class with audio on Likutei Moharan. So that's very in-depth. That's inside. That's Rebbe Nachman's magnum opus. And, my goal is, with Hashem's help, to be able to teach everything that Rebbe Nachman wrote. And that's going to take a long time, and it's going to take a lot of assistance from above. It's going to take a lot of assistance from students. Like even this trip, like I prayed for so long, Hashem, please help me to go travel around the world and to give people this treasure that you're giving me. But you need so much help. You need financial help. You need support. You need to work out with your family, right? So like I don't have money to pay for this trip. So students who really feel strongly about this, that live in America, that feel like it could benefit others, like they finance the flight and they finance the flights in between states, right? If it wasn't for them, this would never have happened, right?
Sure.
So I really want to be able to travel all around the world and to give these teachings over to many different types of people, but that will require a lot of support.
Beautiful, beautiful. So how if they wanted to maybe join or learn from one of your shirim, how can they do that?
Yeah.
So if you go to we have a YouTube channel. It's called Tzion Breslov Project. If you type in Tzion Breslov Project, you'll see our YouTube channel. We have literally exactly 500 videos, and just in the past 4 years since we started it. And a lot of those classes are very long. They're like an hour and a half. So there's like literally thousands of hours of footage. So there's a lot of good stuff on there, Baruch Hashem. I'm just, Baruch Hashem, we had our first sizable donation to Tzion Breslov. I'm not going to mention who gave it to us, but it's one of the students who feels very passionately about the project. And I prayed a lot to use it in the best way possible. And so I decided to utilize it to revamp our website. Our website is not good. If you look at the website, it looks, pretty spare. But we're going to, Bezrat Hashem, use that to revamp the entire website and make it look good the way that Rebbe Nachman deserves, the way that Hashem deserves, and the Jewish people deserve, and the world deserves. So our YouTube channel is good. The website is also good. It just doesn't look good. Hopefully that will look good. And you can go to those two places to hear all of the classes and the videos. And then if you want to be a part of the group that learns every week together, Rebbe Nachman stories, you can let Ladero know your phone number and your name. I'll add you to the group. Just be prepared. These are people who are really want to grow and really are yearning to grow and are really in it. So this is not for the faint of heart. This is not for people who are like, let me just, let me dabble in what's going on. There's also that. We have that also. But this was specifically made for people who like, I know that this is like the truth of truths. And I want to be in this all the way. And I want to be able to grow with this all the way. So if you find that like you're at that point at some point, so definitely come. We'd love to have you.
Awesome. Okay. Let me see. I think that's all the questions. I think Lior's there. Lior said,
Lior, how you doing? I miss you. Hope you're doing good.
Good to see you, brother.
Sending you a lot of love.
Well, anything? Let me see. Did you want to add anything, babe?
I'm just speechless.
It's a lot. It's a lot. We're trying to process it.
My mind
I hope it wasn't too much.
No, it's so good. It is so rich and what's needed. It's just.
Yeah, I mean, this was very much needed. I mean, I'm sure a lot of you guys were impacted, but I mean, we're getting it. Like it's fresh right in our home, right here in our dining room, and we're just so grateful. Right. You've added so much value to, I believe, everybody who decided to listen for these 2 hours and 3 minutes and 30 seconds, which is incredible. It's just been incredible. And so we just encourage, if you guys want to continue learning, check out Tzion Breslov on YouTube, on Instagram. Also, I believe on the website, can they connect and find your PayPal through the website?
Yeah, if you go to the donate page, there's going to be a yellow donate button there. You press that yellow donate button, you can contribute on a one-time basis or a monthly basis. All the funds that are given to Tzion, like when you go through so much in your life, you start to care very little about most things and care a lot about like one or two things. And so like I like at this point in my life, I'm just trying to give over and to help other people to experience blessing and peace and restoration in their life. And so, you can look at my car, where I'm not trying to make money. I just want to help people. And then obviously like any finances that come our way, we use to improve the technology, improve the website, improve the YouTube channel. Bezrat Hashem, one day to be able to travel more and to teach more. One day to write a book, maybe even, and Bezrat Hashem, one day to have actual like yeshiva, a place where people from around the world can come and learn and connect. So if you resonate with these teachings, if you want them to grow and spread more, if you want to experience them more, so Rebbe Nachman says, for the greatest revelation of Torah, you need the greatest amount of wealth. He brings many Torah sources to prove it.
Wow.
So there it is.
Awesome, beautiful. Well, thank you, Rabbi Kalmus. We're truly, truly grateful. Thank you for adding so much value, and anything that we can do to help and to partner with you on this journey, we're all in.
Okay, awesome. With you also.
You guys have such a great night. Thank you so much for all your love, for all your support. You guys are absolutely amazing. All my wife and I want to do is that we want to help you guys elevate. We want to help you guys go to the next level, and that's our mission here. And we love you guys. We care for you so much. We support you. We thank you for your support. We support you.
Thank you for supporting us.
Thank you for supporting us.
Because you guys elevate us, right?
Absolutely.
So thank you for being that, and all of you guys who commented tonight and your questions and just your, like you said, your love and support. We are just truly, truly grateful. And we just want to continue just to be that light, that vessel for Hashem.
All right. So tune in. So there's going to be a lot of people who are going to be watching the replay. So if that's you, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoy. Make sure you guys share this link. Make sure you guys like it. Make sure you guys subscribe if you want to. And also make sure you guys please support Rabbi Kalmus on his incredible journey to spreading the teachings of Rebbe Nachman. You guys have a great, amazing night. We love you all.